This is Where We Live. I'm John Dankosky. As Connecticut asks for more money for rebuilding after Sandy, New Jersey is spending money, and some worry about whether it's actually planning for another big storm. John McKinney is getting into the race for governor of Connecticut. One of his problems might be name recognition. And there's, of course, no problem for New York City mayoral candidate Anthony Weiner, who just keeps making news every single day, it seems, and keeps putting his wife in front of the press.
Anthony's made some horrible mistakes, both before he resigned from Congress and after. But I do very strongly believe that is between us.
In Hartford's mayor's office, another bizarre story continues to play out, and a longtime congressman says he knows why Washington is broken.
I don't think you can deny that money plays a disproportionate role in the process.
That's just a bit of what we'll cover today on The Wheelhouse, Where He Lives Weekly News Roundtable. You can join us at 860-275-7266. Again, 860-275-7266. Email wherewelive@WNPR.org, or you can tweet us at Where We Live. We're also on CTN, the Connecticut Network today. Joining me in studio is Jeff Cohen, WNPR's Capital Region reporter. Hi, Jeff.
Morning, John.
And Christine Stuart is here. She's the editor of CTNewsJunkie. Christine, welcome back.
Thank you.
Also joining us on the phone, Chris Keating. He's the Capitol Bureau Chief for the Hartford Courant. Chris, welcome back to Where We Live.
Good morning.
So I want to go to Christine and Chris first and talk about John McKinney getting into the governor's race. We were a little surprised yesterday, Christine, because when you get into the race for governor, it's usually a press conference, some big to-do. John McKinney decided to do this by press release.
Yeah, it was a little interesting. I mean, he doesn't have statewide name recognition, so you would think that he would take advantage of a slow news cycle and getting in front of the cameras and talking to reporters, but that didn't happen. So it kind of makes you think, how serious is he really about running for governor? That's
a really good question. I'll say, Jeff Cohen, you were trying to get in touch with him yesterday. We couldn't get a call back. We were trying to get him on the air.
It was difficult. We in fact we got a guarantee that we'd hear from him by at some point in the afternoon, and it was total radio silence. Actual radio silence.
So we didn't hear from him. So Chris Keating, who exactly is John McKinney? A lot of people in our listening audience who don't follow the legislature very closely probably don't know much about him. Who is he?
Well, he's one of the top Republicans in the state. I guess he's been the Senate Minority Leader, I believe, since '07. He is very well known down in Fairfield County. He might not be as well known to your listeners in Killingly and New London and places like that. His father was a congressman down in Fairfield County for 17 years, so the name recognition spillover is very, very high down there. So places like Greenwich, New Canaan, all the Republican strongholds, the name McKinney is very well known. Anyway, he's a guy who went to Fairfield Prep, he went to Yale, he went to UConn Law School, and he's a fiscal conservative, and he's kind of a moderate on guns and a lot of other issues.
Yeah, if you know the McKinney Wildlife Refuge, that's the same McKinney name. So what do we know about his politics, Christine Stuart? How different is he, say, than Tom Foley, who is already in this race for governor?
Well, I don't think that he's much different from Tom Foley. Tom Foley is going to be most likely a self-funder, and John McKinney has interestingly decided to use the public campaign finance system, which, oftentimes during budget debates, he, screams and yells about all of this money, taxpayer money, going to fund campaigns.
He's basically said he doesn't like this taxpayer-funded system, but he's going to use it. Has he explained yet why?
Well, I mean, he said that he's going to use it because he thinks this is the best way that, to raise small money donations and be able to get out and speak to the public.
Chris Keating, does this cause him any problems here, this inconsistency on public financing?
Well, he did address that. He basically said along the lines that he doesn't like the law, but the law is the law. It is correct that a lot of Republicans have, in their different budget plans, have tried to get rid of this law, saying that it's a waste of taxpayer money to pay for bumper stickers for politicians. But I think he doesn't want to be a self-funder, and obviously he doesn't have as much money as Foley, so he's going to abide by the law.
Larry Cafaro was thought to maybe get into this race. He's the other leading Republican on the House side. He's not going to get into the race. Is John McKinney up against one of the problems that legislative Republicans seem to have in the state, Chris? It's that they're able to say an awful lot, we don't like this law, but they don't have enough real power in the legislature to do much about it. It almost seems as though John McKinney is going to have to talk a lot about his record, what he has and hasn't done in the legislature over all these years.
Yeah, I think he'll talk a lot about Governor Malloy. I mean, McKinney's been doing that really for a while now. Actually, a couple of years. It's really speeded up in the last year. But I think he's going to talk more about Malloy than he is about Tom Foley, at least at first blush, because he's been talking about Malloy constantly for more than a year.
He's been talking about Malloy constantly, but a lot of the reasons why people do or have gravitated in the past to Governor Malloy, his this recent Q poll numbers notwithstanding, Christine, is that they've seen him act through crisis. They've seen him act through a series of storms, including storms that have hit John McKinney's area, Fairfield County, pretty hard. They've seen him react during the Sandy Hook shootings, and John McKinney basically stood with him on some of these issues after that. So how is he going to differentiate himself from Governor Malloy when essentially Governor Malloy is also a Fairfield County guy? He's stood up and helped out Fairfield County and a lot of John McKinney's constituents all along this last couple of years.
Well, I think John is probably going to attack the governor mostly on the economic development front and these large taxpayer giveaways to large companies. That seems to be resonating with, the general public. He's probably going to shy away from gun issues. I mean, he voted for the bipartisan bill, and that has upset some of the Republican base who strongly support the Second Amendment.
Chris Keating, what is his personality like? Because we haven't really gotten to know John McKinney as well as maybe some other high-profile politicians. He's certainly been on our program an awful lot. What's he going to be like on the campaign trail?
He's a pretty affable guy. I mean, he grew up in a political family from day one, so he's got really a different set of experiences, a little bit more in the fishbowl, or at least maybe right off to the side of the fishbowl, growing up as a kid, the son of a congressman. So he's sensitive to that kind of stuff, doesn't like to talk too much about personal things, doesn't think candidates' kids should be brought into things. But he's a professional. He's been doing this for a long time. He's a pro, both in and out of office, and he's an affable guy, and I think he's been through a lot of campaigns, so he'll be used to this. So
we still haven't heard officially from Governor Malloy about him running for re-election. Obviously, he is going to. Christine, early on, what are you seeing in this race? I know that it's very, very early on in a governor's race, but we have John McKinney and Tom Foley looking to be challengers. Anybody else getting in? Anything else we should be watching for?
Well, I think Danbury Mayor Mark Boughton could make a late entry into the race. He said he's not going to make a decision until after, this November election where he's being reelected as mayor in Danbury. So, we could also see somebody like Senator Tony Boucher enter the race. So,
Chris Keating, any other thoughts on that?
I think Boughton, it would be a little bit late getting in November, but I'm not saying it's impossible. Last time, your listeners may recall, he ran for lieutenant governor. He won separately, and then he got on Foley's ticket. But no, Cafaro would have been one of the big candidates, but I would say definitely Foley and McKinney will be the two big candidates on the Republican side.
Hey, Chris Keating, before I let you go, you're down in New Haven today, right? What are you working on?
Well, actually, I was back from New Haven. The Tony Harp race is quite a good race. We could talk about that sometime. Tony Harp for mayor and against Kermit Carolina and Henry Fernandez, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's very, they play politics for real in New Haven, as you know. Yeah,
there have been some politics for real down there, including broken glass and a lot of name-calling back and forth. Maybe on an upcoming Where We Live, we'll go back into the New Haven mayor's race, which we've been talking about a bit. Chris Keating is the Capitol Bureau Chief for the Hartford Courant. Thanks, Chris, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.